I'd like to tell you about something that most people never learn, something so fundamental to success and failure that once you understand it, you'll wonder how it remained hidden in plain sight your entire life. But before I can share this with you, I need to ask you a question, and I want you to really think about it. Why do you suppose that only 5 out of every 100 people achieve financial independence? Let's take 100 individuals who start out at the age of 25. They're all eager, all capable. Every single one of them truly believes, that they're going to be successful. If you asked them at 25, they'd tell you with complete confidence, I'm going to make it. Now follow those 100 people to age 65. Do you have any idea what you'll find? By the time they reach 65, only 1 will be rich, 4 will be financially independent, 5 will still be working, not because they want to, but because they have to. 36 will have died. And 54, more than half, will be broke, dependent on others for life's necessities, dependent on family, on charity, on whatever small pension they manage to accumulate. Only 5 out of 100 make the grade. Now, why do you suppose that is? These weren't lazy people. Many of them worked harder than the 5 who succeeded. These weren't stupid people. Many had more education than those who achieved independence. They lived in the same economy, had access to the same opportunities, started with the same enthusiasm, yet 95 of them ended up somewhere they never intended to go. Here's what's peculiar. We live in what can only be called a golden age. We have access to more information, more opportunity, more abundance than any generation in human history. A person today can learn virtually anything, reach virtually anyone, build virtually anything. The barriers that stopped previous generations have largely fallen away. And yet, the percentage who succeed hasn't changed. If external circumstances determined outcomes, this generation should be the most successful in history. More resources, more access, fewer obstacles. But the ratio remains stubbornly, mysteriously constant. 5% succeed, 95% drift. Now here's what troubles me about this. Most people, when they consider these statistics, immediately reach for external explanations. They say it's luck, it's connections, it's timing, it's the economy, it's the industry they chose, it's where they were born or who their parents were. But watch what happens when you examine these explanations closely. Take 2 people in the same office, with the same job, the same training, the same salary. One rises steadily over 20 years to positions of increasing responsibility and reward. The other remains stuck, frustrated, wondering why opportunities seem to pass them by. Same circumstances, different results. It's not luck. They had the same luck. It's not connections. They had the same connections. It's not the economy. They faced the same economy. Something else is operating. Something invisible to casual observation, but absolutely decisive in its effects. Someone once asked Dr. Albert Schweitzer, the great Nobel laureate, "Doctor, what's wrong with men today?" The great doctor was silent a moment, and then he said, "Men simply don't think." That's the beginning of the answer. But it goes deeper than that. Most people ask the wrong question. They ask, how do I succeed? Before they ask, why do most people fail? But the second question is the key. Because until you understand the mechanism of failure, you can't understand the mechanism of success. They're the same mechanism operating in opposite directions. And here's what the 95% never realize. The difference between them and the 5% has nothing to do with what they lack. It has everything to do with something they're already doing, something they've been doing every day of their lives without realizing it. They're using the most powerful force available to any human being, and they're using it backwards. Let me tell you something that, if you really understand it, will alter your life immediately. Most people have the relationship between cause and effect exactly reversed. Think of a man standing before a coal stove. He looks at the stove and says, "Give me heat, and then I'll add the wood." The absurdity is obvious, isn't it? Everyone knows you can't get heat from a stove until you put the wood in first. The fuel must precede the heat. That's how stoves work. That's how reality works. Yet this is precisely how most people approach their lives. They say, "Show me the opportunity, and then I'll get motivated." They say, "Prove to me it will work, and then I'll commit." They say, "Give me success, and then I'll develop the attitude of a successful person." They stand before the cold stove of life, demanding heat before they'll add wood, and they wonder why they remain cold. It's that simple. And that fundamental. Here's the key. Most people believe that circumstances create attitudes. They believe that their environment shapes their thinking. That results produce motivation, so they wait. They wait for external conditions to change before they change internally. But the truth is exactly the opposite. Attitudes create circumstances. Thinking shapes environment. The internal determines the external. This isn't philosophy. This is observation. Watch what actually happens in the world. Watch a person who approaches their work with genuine enthusiasm, with clear purpose, with expectation of success. Notice how opportunities seem to find them. Notice how people want to help them. Notice how problems become puzzles rather than obstacles, interesting challenges to be solved rather than barriers to be complained about. Now watch someone who approaches the same work with resentment, with vagueness, with expectation of frustration. Notice how even obvious opportunities pass them by. Notice how people avoid them. Notice how small difficulties become insurmountable problems, reasons to give up rather than invitations to grow. Same work, same environment, different results. The difference isn't in the circumstances. The difference is in what each person brought to the circumstances. Now think of life as a river, a wide, powerful river flowing in one direction. The current moves steadily downstream. What does it take to float with the current? Nothing. You don't have to swim. You don't have to paddle. You simply surrender to the flow, and it carries you along. It's effortless. It's comfortable. Everyone around you is doing the same thing. You're all floating together, going wherever the current takes you. But here's the question nobody asks. Where does the current lead? The current leads wherever the river goes, not where you intended to go, not where you want to arrive, but wherever the water happens to flow. If you surrender to the current, you surrender your destination. This is how 95% of people live. They float with the current. They conform to the direction everyone else is moving. They adjust their expectations to match their environment. They absorb the thinking of the masses, and they end up where the masses end up. The psychologist Rollo May made an observation that explains this perfectly. He wrote, "The opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it is conformity. Not cowardice, conformity." The 95% don't fail because they're weak or lazy or stupid. They fail because they conform. They adopt the thinking of everyone around them. They become what everyone around them becomes. The 5% who succeed don't succeed because they're stronger or smarter or luckier. They succeed because they refuse to float downstream. They choose their direction. They swim toward a destination they have selected. Not against the current for the sake of struggle, but towards something specific, something they have chosen, something worthy of their lives. The Bible puts this principle in terms everyone can understand. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. The sowing must come first, then the reaping. The wood must go in the stove. Then you get the heat. The commitment must precede the evidence. Then you generate the proof. Most people have it exactly backwards. They wait for proof before committing. Show me it works, and then I'll try it. But this guarantees they'll never have proof because they'll never try it. The proof comes through the test, not before it. Now you see the error. Waiting for heat before adding wood, floating with the current instead of choosing direction. You understand why 95% drift to destinations they never intended. But understanding an error isn't the same as understanding the truth. The question now becomes, what should we think about? What is the actual principle that separates those who arrive from those who drift? Let me tell you something that every successful person throughout history has understood. Something so simple that most people dismiss it, and so powerful that those who grasp it are transformed. Here is the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about. Throughout all history, the great wise men and teachers, philosophers and prophets have disagreed with one another on many different things. They've debated the nature of reality, the existence of God, the structure of society, the meaning of justice. It is only on this one point that they are in complete and unanimous agreement. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, said, "A man's life is what his thoughts make of it." Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "A man is what he thinks about all day long." William James, the father of American psychology, said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind. The Bible puts it simply, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. Every wisdom tradition, every philosophy that has stood the test of time, every person who has achieved lasting success converges on this single truth. We become what we think about. But here's what almost no one explains, the mechanism by which this operates. Let me show you. The human mind is much like a farmer's land. The land gives the farmer a choice. He may plant in that land whatever he chooses. The land doesn't care what is planted. It doesn't judge the seeds. It doesn't protect the farmer from his own choices. It simply grows what is planted. If the farmer plants corn, the land returns corn. If the farmer plants wheat, the land returns wheat. And if the farmer plants nightshade, a deadly poison, the land returns nightshade. It will grow poison in just as wonderful abundance as it will grow corn. The land doesn't care. It returns what is planted. The mind works precisely the same way. Plant a specific goal, and the mind grows toward that goal. Plant worry and fear, and the mind grows worry and fear. Plant confusion and aimlessness, and the mind returns confusion and aimlessness. The mind doesn't judge. It doesn't protect you from planting poison. It simply grows what you give it with the same faithful indifference as the farmer's soil. Now here's the critical insight that modern teachers miss. They say, think positive, but they don't tell you what to think about. They say set goals, but they don't explain why goals work. Goals work for one reason only. A goal gives your mind something specific to grow. Think of a ship. A ship with a voyage mapped out, with a captain at the helm and a crew working together, will reach its destination 9,999 times out of 10,000. It doesn't sail in a straight line. Winds shift, currents pull, storms arise. But because the ship knows where it's going, every adjustment moves it closer to its port. But a ship without a destination, just engines running, no course plotted, what happens to that ship? It drifts with whatever current happens to flow. It ends up a derelict on some deserted shore, or worse, not because it lacked an engine, not because it lacked a crew, but because it lacked a destination. It's the same with a human being. Now here's what you must understand. You are already using this principle every single day. You cannot not use it. The only question is whether you're using it deliberately or accidentally. Are you the farmer who chooses his seeds with care? Or are you the farmer who lets whatever blows through the air take root in his soil? Most people plant by accident. They absorb whatever seeds drift through their environment, from conversations, from complaints, from the vague fears and idle worries that circulate like pollen in the air. They don't choose what to plant. They simply absorb what surrounds them. Then they wonder why their harvest looks like everyone else's. The 5% plant deliberately. They guard their minds like farmers guard their fields. They know that what enters the mind eventually exits as circumstance, as results, as life. So they choose what enters. Think back over the past week. What did you think about most? Be honest with yourself. Was it worry about bills, dread about Mondays, fear of failure, resentment about the past, anxiety about the future? Those are seeds. What harvest do you expect from that planting? Now imagine someone who spent that same week thinking about a specific goal, clearly defined, vividly imagined. They expected achievement. They planned contribution. They directed their mental energy towards something they genuinely wanted to create. Same hours, same week, different seeds, different harvest. This is why goals work. This is why direction matters. This is why the 5% succeed while the 95% drift. The secret isn't secret at all. It's been spoken by every wise teacher since time began. But somehow it remains the strangest secret, because most people hear it and don't truly grasp it, or they grasp it and don't truly apply it. We become what we think about. It's that simple. Now you know the principle. The mind grows what's planted, but your mind is already raising objections, isn't it? What about bad luck? What about circumstances I can't control? What about people who think positively and still fail? Fair questions. Let me show you how this principle actually operates in the world and why those objections, natural as they are, don't hold up under examination. Let me show you how this works in practice. Picture a river, wide, powerful, flowing steadily downstream. Stand on the bank and watch. Most people are in the water, floating with the current. They're not lazy, many are paddling furiously, but they're paddling with the current, not against it. They're conforming to the direction everyone else is moving. Watch them closely. They complain about the same things, they worry about the same things, they expect the same things. They talk about problems more than possibilities, about fears more than dreams, about what's wrong more than what could be right. This is the current. This is what conformity looks like in action. Now watch the 5%. They're also in the river, but they're swimming upstream, not against the current for the sake of struggle, but toward a destination they have chosen. They move deliberately in a direction they selected, regardless of where the current flows. Here's what happens. The 95% become what they think about. But what do they think about? They think about what everyone around them thinks about. They absorb the mental environment. Worry, complaint, fear, vague hope without specific direction. So they get what everyone gets. The 5% also become what they think about. But what do they think about? A specific goal, a clear destination, a worthy ideal they're moving toward. They don't absorb randomly, they direct deliberately. So they get what they direct toward. Same principle, same river, different application, different destination. Now why does conformity have such power? Why do 95 out of 100 people end up floating downstream despite their best intentions? Rollo May explained it perfectly. The opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it is conformity. Conformity doesn't feel like giving up. It feels normal. It feels comfortable. Everyone around you is doing the same thing, so it must be the right thing. The current carries you along with minimal effort. You don't have to decide where to go, you just go where everyone goes. But conformity has a cost. When you conform, you think what everyone thinks. When you think what everyone thinks, you get what everyone gets. And what does everyone get? Look at the statistics. By age 65, most people are broke, dependent, wondering what happened to their dreams. That's where the current leads. Let me tell you something about the environment you're swimming in. Listen to conversations today, at work, in public, among friends. Really listen. What percentage of what you hear focuses on problems versus possibilities? What percentage dwells on complaints versus contributions? What percentage expresses fear versus purpose? This is the water you're floating in. This is what you absorb by default. Every complaint you hear, every worry expressed around you, every vague fear voiced by others, these are seeds drifting onto your mental soil. If you don't deliberately plant your own seeds, you grow whatever lands there. Now here's something interesting. Notice how different it feels to be around someone with clear goals and positive expectation. Notice the energy shift. Notice how you feel more alive, more capable, more hopeful in their presence. That's not mystical, that's seed difference. They're planting different seeds in their own mind, and you can feel it radiating outward. The question isn't whether you'll be influenced. You will be. The current is always flowing. The question is whether you'll absorb passively or direct actively, whether you'll float with the masses or swim toward something you chose. Without specific goals, you default to absorption. Without a port, you drift. Now you might say, this is philosophy. Where's the proof? Does this principle actually hold up when tested? Let me show you. Consider two salespeople. Same company, same product, same territory, same training, same economy. One approaches each day expecting to find customers who need what she offers. She sees herself as providing a service, helping people solve problems they actually have. She thinks about how she can create value, how she can serve better, how she can grow her skills. She expects success, not blindly, not arrogantly, but as the natural result of directed effort. The other approaches each day hoping to make enough sales to survive. He worries about rejection. He dreads difficult customers. He thinks about his quota, his bills, his fears. He expects problems and braces for them constantly. Same circumstances, same product, same market, end of the year. The first salesperson outsells the second by a factor of 4 or 5. Now, why do you suppose that is? The easy answer is she's better at sales. But that begs the question, why is she better? They had the same training. The real answer is simpler and more profound. She planted different seeds. She thought about different things. She expected different outcomes, and her mind grew what she planted. He planted worry and survival fear. His mind grew worry and survival results. She planted service and contribution. Her mind grew service and success. Same principle, same soil, different seeds, different harvest. Here's the key insight. Study any successful person before they became successful, and you'll find they already had the attitude of success. They didn't wait for results to feel confident. They felt confident, genuinely, not fakely, because they knew where they were going. The attitude came first. The results followed. Most people have this backwards. They think success creates confidence. They wait for proof before believing. They say, when I succeed, then I'll have a positive attitude. But that's the stove demanding heat before wood. It doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. Every biography of achievement reveals the same pattern. Edison failed thousands of times before the light bulb worked. His circumstances were constant failure. His attitude was unwavering expectation. He planted success, not failure. He thought about solutions, not problems. The circumstances didn't change his thinking. His thinking eventually changed his circumstances. Now you might object, what about bad luck? What about circumstances genuinely beyond control? Fair question. Here's the answer. Watch two people face the same bad luck, the same setback, the same difficulty. One crumbles, one grows stronger. Same circumstances, different outcomes. What explains the difference? Not the circumstances, those were identical. The difference is what each person planted in their mind. The difference is what they thought about as they faced the challenge. William James established this scientifically over a century ago. Human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind. This isn't wishful thinking, it's psychological observation. What you think about shapes how you perceive, what you notice, how you respond, what you attempt, and ultimately what you achieve. Now here's a practical test you can run tomorrow morning. Before anything happens, before the first email, the first conversation, the first challenge, notice your expectations. Are you bracing for difficulty or opening to opportunity? Are you expecting problems or expecting to give and receive good? Then watch how the day unfolds. The day is the land. Your morning expectation is the seed. Notice what grows. Try this experiment. Spend one entire morning deliberately expecting good. Look for ways to serve. Assume that opportunities will present themselves. Notice what happens. Is the day different? The circumstances haven't changed. The filter has. I've shown you the principle. I've shown you the river. I've shown you the evidence in contrasting lives and attitudes. You understand now why the 5% succeed while the 95% drift. You understand the mechanism. But understanding a principle and applying it are different things. Knowing the farmer's secret doesn't grow corn. You must actually plant seeds. The question becomes practical. How do you take control of what you plant? How do you swim upstream when the current pulls so powerfully downstream? How do you change what you think about when your environment constantly pushes other thoughts toward you? There's a method, a specific, testable approach that can prove this principle to you through your own direct experience. Let me show you how it works. Now let me show you how to apply everything we've discussed, how to take this principle from understanding to action, from knowledge to transformation. I want to give you a test, a 30-day test that will prove this principle through your own direct experience. Not because I say it works, not because philosophers and psychologists say it works, but because you will see it work in your own life. Here's what you do. Take a card, an index card, a piece of paper, anything you can carry with you. On that card, write down the single most important goal you want to achieve. Be specific. Not, I want to be successful. That's too vague. The mind can't grow toward vague. Not, I want more money. That's a wish, not a direction. Write exactly what success means to you. I want to earn $50,000 this year through excellent service in my field. I want to complete my degree by next June. I want to build a business that serves 100 customers. Whatever your goal is, make it specific, make it measurable, make it meaningful to you. This card becomes your destination chart. Think of a ship crossing the ocean. The captain doesn't sail in a straight line. Winds shift, currents pull, storms arise. The ship adjusts constantly. But because the captain has a destination clearly marked on his chart, every adjustment moves the ship closer to port. Without that chart, the same adjustments would be random. The ship would drift wherever the winds pushed it. Your card is your chart. Now here's how you use it. Read that card when you wake up in the morning. First thing, before the day's current starts pulling at you, read it and think about it. Picture yourself having already achieved it. Feel what it will feel like. Read it again at noon. In the middle of the day, when you're immersed in activity and routine, pull out that card and remind yourself where you're headed. Read it again before you go to sleep. Let it be the last thing on your mind as you drift off. Your subconscious mind works while you sleep. Give it something specific to work on. And here's the crucial part. Every time a negative thought enters your mind, worry, fear, doubt, discouragement, replace it immediately by reading your card and thinking about your goal. You cannot think two thoughts at the same time. This is the replacement technique. You don't fight negative thoughts. Fighting gives them energy. You don't suppress them. Suppression just pushes them underground. You replace them. You crowd them out. Think of it this way. The farmer doesn't eliminate weeds by attacking them. He eliminates them by growing his crop so thick, so strong, so abundant that there's no room left for weeds to take root. Fill your mind with your goals so completely that negativity has no space to flourish. Now you might ask, why does this work? What's actually happening? Here's the mechanism. When you give your mind a clear target, something remarkable begins to happen. Ideas occur to you, ideas you wouldn't have had otherwise. You notice opportunities you would have walked right past before. People and resources seem to appear. Connections form that seem almost coincidental. This isn't magic. This isn't mystical. This is how the mind works when properly directed. Your mind is constantly filtering the world. There's too much information to process otherwise. What determines what gets through the filter? What you're focused on? What you're thinking about? What you've told your mind to look for? When you think about problems, you notice problems. When you think about your goal, you notice paths toward your goal. The opportunities were always there. The resources were always present. You simply couldn't see them because your filter wasn't set to recognize them. The card sets your filter. Now here's why specificity matters so much. More money is too vague to filter for. The mind doesn't know what to notice. But earning $50,000 through excellent service, that gives the mind something to work with. It starts noticing ways to serve better. It spots opportunities to add value. It recognizes resources that could help. A vague goal produces vague results. A specific goal engages your full mental capacity. There's one more element to this method, and it's essential. The goal you write must be yours. Not what you think you should want, not what others expect of you, not what sounds impressive. Your goal, something that genuinely matters to you. Something that when you think about it, you feel energy, not obligation. Why? Because you can't sustain attention on something you don't actually care about. The mind won't keep growing toward a destination that doesn't truly matter. You'll abandon the practice within days. A worthy ideal must be your worthy ideal. So here's your assignment. Today, not tomorrow, not next week, today, get a card, write your goal, make it specific, make it yours. Carry it in your pocket. Read it tonight before you sleep, and tomorrow when you wake. Begin the process. You have the chart now. You have the method. But there's something more you need to understand. What happens when you slip? When negative thinking floods in despite your best efforts? When the current pulls hard downstream? The restart rule and the principle behind it will determine whether your 30 days succeeds or becomes another abandoned attempt. Let me tell you something about how this process actually works and why patience is not just helpful, but essential. Think of a farmer planting seeds in spring. He prepares the soil. He selects his seeds with care. He plants them at the right depth, in the right rows, with the right spacing. He waters them. He waits. Now, does the farmer return the next morning, dig up the seeds, and examine them to see if they're growing? Of course not. That would be absurd. It would destroy the very process he's trying to cultivate. The farmer trusts the process. He does his work, watering, weeding, protecting from pests, but he doesn't control the growth itself. He can't make the seeds grow faster by watching them more anxiously. He can't accelerate the harvest by doubting whether the seeds are really working. He plants, he cultivates, he trusts. The 30-day test requires the same approach. You write your goal. You read it daily. You replace negative thoughts with focused attention on your destination. But you don't dig up the seeds every hour to see if they're sprouting. You don't demand evidence of progress before the process has had time to work. You plant, you cultivate, you trust. Now here's the restart rule, and I want you to understand why it exists. If you slip, if you spend an entire day absorbed in negative thinking, worry, doubt, if you completely forget your goal and drift with the current, start the 30 days over. Not as punishment, not as failure, simply as course correction. Think of the ship again. A ship crossing the ocean doesn't sail in a straight line. It can't. Winds blow it off course, currents pull it sideways. The captain is constantly adjusting, constantly correcting, constantly bringing the ship back toward its destination. Is each adjustment a failure? Of course not. Each adjustment is part of successful navigation. A restart is an adjustment. It's not defeat, it's course correction. You drifted, you noticed, you're returning to your heading. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is building the habit of directed thinking. The goal is teaching your mind what you want to grow. That takes repetition, that takes correction. That takes returning to your course every time you drift. Now let me tell you what happens when you actually complete this 30-day test. Those who finish, who genuinely finish, who read their card daily, who replace negative thoughts consistently, who trust the process, discover something unexpected, they don't want to go back. Random thinking feels chaotic after deliberate cultivation. Floating downstream feels aimless after swimming toward a destination. The contrast becomes so clear that undirected thought feels like a form of self-neglect. The 30-day test isn't really about 30 days. It's about establishing a pattern strong enough to become permanent. It's about showing you, through your own experience, what it feels like to be the farmer instead of the field, to be the captain instead of the driftwood. Once you've tasted that difference, you don't forget it. Now here's what to expect during the 30 days themselves. Some days will be easy. You'll feel focused, energized, certain. Your goal will feel close and achievable. These are not the days that matter most. Some days will be hard. The current will pull strongly. Old thinking patterns will reassert themselves. Doubt will whisper that this is foolish, that nothing is changing, that you might as well give up. These are the days that matter most. Because these are the days when you prove to yourself that you can choose your thinking, that the current doesn't control you, that you can redirect, replace, return to your course. Every time you catch yourself drifting and bring yourself back, you strengthen the habit. Every time you replace a negative thought with your goal, you make the next replacement easier. You're building a muscle, the muscle of directed attention. And here's something interesting that most people don't expect. After a few weeks, ideas will start coming, not because you're wishing harder or believing more intensely, but because your filter has changed. Your mind is now looking for ways to achieve your goal. It's noticing opportunities it would have ignored before. It's making connections it couldn't have made when it was scattered across 100 undirected worries. This is the harvest beginning to appear. Don't demand the harvest on day 3. The farmer doesn't dig up seeds, but watch for it around day 20, day 25. Notice the ideas. Notice the opportunities. Notice what you're seeing that you couldn't see before. That's when you'll understand, not because I told you, but because you experienced it, that the principle is real. Now you have the technique, you have the mindset, you know how to plant, how to redirect, how to trust the process. But before you begin, before you write that card, there's something more to understand. Something about what you're really planting and why it matters beyond your personal success. Let me tell you something that will change how you think about everything we've discussed. Success is not a destination you arrive at. It's not a place, a position, a possession, a number in a bank account. Success is a direction you're moving in. The definition is simple. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Read that again. Progressive realization, meaning it's happening now, in the process, not at some future point when you've made it. The school teacher who is teaching because that's what she genuinely wants to do, she is a success right now. Not when she becomes principal, not when she wins an award, now, because she is progressively realizing a worthy ideal. The entrepreneur who is building his company because it represents his dream and his service, he is a success right now. Not when he hits $1 million, not when he has 100 employees. Now, because he is moving deliberately towards something that matters to him. Success is having chosen your direction and moving in it. Failure is drifting without direction, or worse, moving toward what you don't actually want. This changes everything. Because by this definition, you can be successful today, this moment. You simply need to know where you're going and be moving toward it. Think again of the ship. When is a ship successful? Only when it reaches port? That would mean it's unsuccessful for the entire voyage, weeks or months of failure until the moment it docks. That's absurd. A ship is successful when it has chosen its port and is sailing toward it. The voyage is the success. The movement is the success. The direction is the success. Adjustments to wind and current aren't failures. They're part of successful navigation. Problems encountered along the way aren't evidence of failure. They're the natural terrain of the journey. You don't have to arrive to be successful. You have to be en route. Now here's why this matters. For everything we've discussed about thinking and planting and the mind's fertile soil, if you think success is a destination, you plant anxiety. You think, I'm not there yet. I might not make it. What if I fail? These are the seeds that grow in the mind that sees success as arrival. If you think success is a direction, you plant confidence. You think, I know where I'm going, I'm moving toward it, every day that I maintain this direction, I am succeeding. These are entirely different seeds. Same goal. Different relationship to the goal, different harvest. Now here's something even more important. Your rewards will always be in exact proportion to your service. Money cannot be sought directly. Money, like happiness, is an effect. It's a result of a cause, and the cause is valuable service. Watch what happens when people pursue money directly. They ask, how can I make more money? They scheme for shortcuts. They resent the work required. They plant seeds of grasping and impatience. Now watch what happens when people pursue service. They ask, how can I be worth more? How can I serve more people better? How can I do this work more excellently than it's ever been done? The money follows. It has no choice. Money is the world's way of saying, thank you for service rendered. Serve more, receive more. Serve better, receive better. This isn't idealism, it's observation. Study anyone who has achieved lasting success, and you'll find service at the center. Not service as a tactic to get money, but service as a way of being. The most successful people I know don't ask, how do I get? They ask, how do I give? And here's the paradox. They receive more than those who spend all their energy trying to get. Now I want you to look at the card you've written, or if you haven't written it yet, think about the goal you're considering. Ask yourself, is this a worthy ideal? Would achieving it make the world slightly better, or just your bank account larger? Does it include giving, or only getting? Is there service in it, or only acquisition? This isn't a moral lecture. This is practical wisdom. A goal that only gets you things will satisfy you less than a goal that serves through you. It's how human beings are built. We are wired for contribution. Emerson put it perfectly. The purpose of life is not to be happy, but to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived. Every enduringly successful person points to contribution as their deepest satisfaction. Not the money. The money was nice, but it wasn't the point. The contribution, the service, the difference made. So make sure your goal includes contribution. Make sure it points towards something worthy. Make sure that achieving it would make you proud, not for what you got, but for what you became and what you gave along the way. Now there's one final understanding, the ripple effect of everything we've discussed. What you plant in your mind doesn't just determine your outcomes. It affects everyone around you in ways you may not realize. Let me show you what becomes possible when one person decides to think differently. I'd like to leave you with something that extends far beyond personal success. Consider this. When you change your thinking, you change more than your own life. Your children watch what you do more than they listen to what you say. They absorb your attitudes before they understand your words. A parent who drifts teaches drifting. A parent who directs teaches direction. Your mental cultivation is never private. It's constantly modeling what's possible for the people closest to you. Your colleagues sense whether you're swimming upstream or floating downstream. They feel the difference even if they can't name it. One person with clear goals and positive expectation changes the atmosphere of a room. Their presence becomes permission for others to think differently. Your community reflects the quality of thought you bring to it. Your neighborhood, your organization, your circle of friends, all of these are shaped in part by what you plant in your own mind and radiate outward. One person, genuinely transformed, transforms their circle, and circles overlap. This is how societies change, not through programs or policies primarily, but through individuals who decide to think differently and act accordingly. The philosophers we quote were once just people who refused to float with the current. The leaders we admire were once unknown individuals who chose their direction and kept swimming. You join their lineage not by reading about them, but by doing what they did. Now let's return to where we began. I asked you why only 5 out of 100 people achieve financial independence, why 95% end up somewhere they never intended to go. Now you know the answer. The 5% plant deliberately. They choose what enters their mind. They guard their mental soil. They write goals on cards and read them daily. They replace negative thoughts with focused attention. They swim upstream toward destinations they have chosen. The 95% plant accidentally. They absorb whatever drifts through their environment. They float with the current. They let circumstances dictate attitudes instead of attitudes shaping circumstances. They wait for heat before adding wood. The difference was never luck. It was never talent. It was never circumstance. The difference was cultivation. And here's the remarkable thing. Cultivation is available to everyone right now, today. You don't need to buy anything, gain any credential, wait for any permission. You need only understand that your mind is a garden, that you are the gardener, and that what you plant with consistency and conviction will surely grow. The tools are in your hands. The card awaits your goal. The 30 days begin whenever you decide. The river flows one direction, downstream toward conformity, toward average thinking, toward where everyone else ends up. But you can swim anywhere you choose. Will you be among the 5% who succeed or the 95% who drift? The difference is not ability. It's not luck. It's not circumstance. The difference is whether you take deliberate control of what you plant in your mind. I'd like to tell you something which, if you really understand it, will alter your life immediately. You are now, and you will become, what you think about. This isn't philosophy. It isn't theory. It isn't positive thinking or wishful hoping. It's law as certain as gravity, as reliable as sunrise, as old as human wisdom, and as fresh as this morning's choice. The strangest secret has been spoken by every wise teacher since time began. Marcus Aurelius knew it. Emerson knew it. William James knew it. The Bible teaches it. Every truly successful person has discovered it. Yet somehow it remains the strangest secret, because most people hear it and don't truly grasp it, or they grasp it and don't truly apply it. Now you know. The 3-0 day test awaits. The card awaits your goal. The farmer's land awaits your seeds. The question isn't whether this principle is true. It has been verified by every authority across every age. The question isn't whether it will work for you. It works for everyone who applies it, because it's how the mind operates. The question is simply this. Will you test it? Will you write your goal on a card today? Will you read it morning, noon, and night? Will you replace every negative thought with focused attention on your destination? Will you plant deliberately instead of absorbing accidentally? Will you swim upstream toward something you've chosen instead of floating downstream with everyone else? The choice, as always, is yours. But I hope you'll start today. because you have nothing to lose, but you have your whole life to win.